cover this.
I always want to learn what people really want.
The commitment to the bit is unparalleled, is what you just learned.
Yes.
You are passionate, you are focused, you are driven, is what you should deduce from that.
Have you been losing weight? But legitimately.
Oh, okay. I was like, where is
Oh,
this
well.
going?
You look like it. Not that you were anything else before. Just curious.
It's not
Are
intentional.
you healthy and feel safe at home? Okay.
Did you get a little bit more vitamin D? Like, is that what's
Getting it in your cones and rods.
Well, no.
I've been telling
You have
everyone.
cones and rods, and then there's another. It doesn't come through the cones and rods. That's for the other stuff. But then there's another pathway that takes it straight to the.
So stare at the sun is what I heard.
No, actually. Look straight ahead though,
Yeah.
because it's designed like. So has anybody ever used a sunlight before?
Yeah.
Okay. So where do you put it?
I put it up here.
Or there-ish.
Because you want it to mimic the angle that it comes in from the sun, because the
Yeah.
body is built and designed for nature.
Yeah.
And so some people like put it right in front of them or different things. And that actually
Yeah, so
is much
also
better.
don't do it at night. You'll mess up your circadian rhythms.
If someone with ADHD already has a very
Every
messed
time
up
I go
circadian
outside, she's
rhythm.
like, oh, good.
And actually,
You're like,
if
I
you
don't care about outside.
have
I don't.
diagnoses,
Where I'm like, I
there are
could rip off all
diagnoses
my
where
clothes and
you
go
should
live out in the
utilize
jungle,
it
and I'd be
different
so
times of the
happy.
Really?
Like, I just want to take clothes off and home, and I get home and
So
I run around with
that's
my
why it's never
skivvies in the
universal.
yard
Like,
every
don't
time,
just-
and
it's
I grab
not
Interesting.
everybody's
Yeah.
got
I love nature
Most of us
spring.
circadian
I don't know if
rhythms,
I'd want to
like
do
that
that
would be
again.
the
No.
time
Maybe I'm not
best
that
time to
juggly,
get
but-
the sun to reset the
I'm in
clocks.
Wisconsin.
But for other people,
I'm a
it's better
forest
to do
fairy.
it at a different time.
When
I'm
we stayed in the Airbnb once, and
I don't have all the details on that right now, but I have come across that.
Interesting.
Mhm.
But we stayed in a guest house that had like a full open, like you could open up one whole side of the house.
Oh,
So it was basically
cool.
a patio, and I was like, this is great. I am both inside and outside.
Aaron,
Look at me getting in nature.
This is nature.
They're so gross.
And I was just like, the yard. I hate it.
he's like, I'm going to Costa Rica. And then so then of course I like look at Sarah and I'm like, what are you two going to Costa Rica for? And she's like, I'm not going. And I'm like, oh, what are you going to Costa Rica for? And he's like, bamboo timber framing workshop.
When I
And all
lived
the
with my
pictures
ex
are
Katie,
just-
we lived out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
And I
That
had all of
sounds
my
awesome.
succulents outside, and I was
Then I really go.
It
do
was
I really
night
want to be
outside,
doing
so it
that?
was dark, but they also
I
didn't
have gotten to
she
do
was
some timber
on
framing
top
with
of it,
Aaron
very
when
secluded
I
around
helped him
trees,
raise a
and
timber frame
I
house
get out of
over
the
in
shower and
Seymour.
I hear it's
It's
like
absolutely stunning.
downpouring.
It's
on my
gorgeous.
succulents, which
Timber
cannot get.
framing, super awesome.
much
Timber
more.
framing
Yeah.
in Wisconsin
So I'm
in
like outside
January
naked.
of
Like I
2022,
didn't even
when all
dry
your
myself
beams
out
get
of the shower.
recovered
So I'm
in
like, I'm
ice
gonna go
every
outside
night.
and get
Right?
Not good.
Right.
Not good.
Oh, I go grab the dog
Again,
all the
especially
time in my underwear.
because
We
of
live
the
on a
type of,
county
like,
highway,
work
so I'm
Aaron
like,
does. He's
people
like,
could
"Water
totally
on
see
this job
someone
site,
running.
no,
But
you
you can't see
And I'm
it.
like,
You
yeah,
know
yeah.
it's just
It's
far enough
so-
off. But I'm just like, I'm to the point where I'm like, look away.
Yeah.
I also look very hot when I'm timber framing. It's hot mask vibes.
Aww.
Makes me feel like a man.
Crazy
Until I get a
tuna.
sledgehammer dropped on my
Crazy
foot.
tuna.
I squawked like a bitch.
Ooh, that sounds awful.
So, but I was like very worried. I'm like, you're really gonna let me
Yeah,
saw
I
down
know.
this
They
beam
pulled
on
these
this
ones out, and I'm like, what the
$400,000
heck? I ordered off
project you're
Amazon.
working on, and he's like, oh yeah, I'm
I
not gonna
wonder-
give you anything you can mess up. And I'm
Yeah.
like, thank you, because
I don't
genuinely,
know. It's like
I'm
she said
petrified
somebody from
right
UK
now.
that said
Yeah.
printed in UK, and I'm like, maybe it is.
I don't have the weird spelling, like the S's instead of Z's.
Talks about everything being in pounds.
Yeah.
Alrighty then. Shall we start with logistics?
Yes.
How are we doing with the end of the semester? How's the load?
The horrors persist, but so do I.
I know you got a lot of papers turned in. So you have a month left. Will we have 4 weeks left? So what can people tell me what's on your radar?
We got
Molly's huge
Molly.
Yeah.
project.
Molly's
15 pages.
Is that
The entire grade.
Is that
for
the
Molly's
final?
class pretty much is.
Yeah.
Really? Okay?
And
So
it's
that
50% of our grade.
so that's due finals week.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a week later now.
May
Well, it was
6th.
May 6th.
What is finals week?
May 6th and 7th is actually finals week.
Yeah.
So
Well, she had it before,
Yes.
but she just pushed it back.
okay. Okay.
So there's that.
So that is due that week.
So we've got service learning project due the 29th, community
That's due on the
paper.
6th now. Yep.
Okay, that's the 6th. Community papers also the 6th.
That's Kevin's class.
Yes. Contemporary, we have our final case study on the 6th. Trauma theory application paper due on the 6th, and we have a final exam on the 7th.
Okay.
So that's for finals. But we still have some homework in between there too.
So you get a little bit of homework, but
Some
okay,
reflection.
so kind of a big final thing for each class. Do that, a little bit of reflection.
Yeah.
Okay. Just get a sense for where things are at.
I feel tired. I'm like excited about what I'm learning. It just, I'm tired.
It is hard.
Yeah.
Having gone through this enough cycles now, this is my 8th year teaching something. It's kind of weird to think about. Getting old. Did I really lock that out? Was that locked?
Yeah, I'll unlock
Oh,
it. Tricky.
we made the joke. Should I lock Lisa out?
Yeah.
But I actually checked that one and it wasn't locked. I didn't realize that one was
Brian
locked.
was the only one who wanted to lock you out. Right
Yeah, we
Oh.
all were like, no, that's so mean.
All right.
Yeah,
Okay. What was I starting to say?
Asking how we're doing this
Oh,
semester.
yeah. But it's so, yeah, and I just want to acknowledge that. Having been in a college cycle just from the teaching side for this many years, I recognize the ebbs and flows, and it seems like you cross that 10 to 12 week mark, and it's just really hard to keep going. Like, I really wish there were like 4 quarters, trimesters within
Yeah,
that,
I would.
because I just feel like the 10 mark, you can kind of keep the energy on one topic for about 10, maybe 12 weeks, and then it's kind of challenging. So I feel that. So where we're at with ending, and I do apologize. You are my guinea pigs this year. So knowing that, you get a lot of extra grace with this. But this was kind of a brainchild. I was thinking through, because now that I know I probably will regularly teach this class, because I've told you before, I never know, what I'm going to do or not. So I kind of did a little bit more just the standard format. But I wanted to do with this one a little bit more practical, more case study oriented, rather than like last year, you'd be writing another paper similar to most of the other papers you've written. And I know this gets really redundant with that, so I wanted to approach it a little bit differently. So you're a little bit my guinea pig. The rubric, Victoria had asked me about that. I could post something. I'll be honest at this point, maybe I'll have something next year. Like, I don't have I'm not a big rubric guy to begin with. Actually, I find them more pigeonholing than anything else. Because, everybody wants to know what exactly you're going to grade me on. Then people get stuck on, what are you going to grade me on? And then I feel like it loses some of its, nature of what it's trying to be. So what we're doing for the next couple weeks, and then the final is going to kind of do that, kind of be similar to this in a way, but it's going to be my case study, or a couple case studies. Has anybody written their case study yet? You started on that. I got Kylie and Victoria because Victoria headed out today. So there's not a huge rubric to it. All I want you to do, I really just kind of want to keep it simple. All I want you to do is write a case study like all of you are familiar with writing now. You've probably written enough case studies in your time. And just really take hold and utilize the lens. So when you do the child family one, write a case study that has a child with some kind of family. So it could be a one parent, it could be a grandparent, it could be whatever, a full, it could be a blended family, a full, multi-member family, however you want to do that. But a child and the family. The child is the client, but you're bringing in that family lens. And I just want you to look through the slides and the readings and the things that we've done related to child therapy. And be a little bit creative with it. And that's why it's hard. Rubrics take out creativity. So I want you to be creative. Play with it. Have some fun with it. And create a storyline where, go back to the diagnosis days a little bit. Like, what are they coming in for? So it's kind of like an intake session you're writing out, this case study. And put a little bit of diagnostic work so we can play back to last year a little bit when we come together. But look back to like some of the child development type things. Like pick 2 or 3 that you're hoping, like I'm going to see if anybody's going to catch that I added something about this, and we've talked about this quite a bit in this class. All right, so think about child development. Think about parenting styles and dynamics. You see where I'm going now? So think about these different pieces that we've talked about and just create a nice little 1-page case study, 3/4, 1-page case study that we're going to bring in, and I'm going to have you kind of work on it in pairs. So we're going to bring it in. We'll read the case study. Actually, I'd like to role play them a little bit and have some fun over the next 2 weeks. I know some people are, yeah, you were one. I heard you don't like the role plays very much, do you? But I'd love to role play it because part of that is, and I remember doing this last year in this class, because everybody was totally freaked out about going into clinic because they'd never really been down there and gotten comfortable and seen much. I know a few of you have been behind the mirror for different things, but still kind of you've never sat in a room, in the therapy room and kind of role play that a little bit. And so I wanted to do a little bit more role play, even though it's not always the funnest thing for everybody, but you're getting close to the point where this is what you're going to do. And so I kind of want to create that transition piece for you. And that's really kind of what I try to do. I try to do integration. We talk a lot about integration here. I recognize that my class isn't as always to the level of the academic side of things as some of the other classes, but part of me does that intentionally because they're more trained as the high-level academics. I have an academic side to me, but I try to integrate really the real-life practical side that has to be connected with the academic, because I don't want you sitting in a therapy room being an academic, do we? That usually doesn't go very well. So you're creating a creative case study that we're going to present. We might even, this is what I'm guinea pigging. I'm going to figure out over the next week how we're going to play this out, how we're going to have fun with this. And that's what I want it to be. I hope it's not a pressure-filled. We can just kind of come in, get goofy with each other, role play it. I remember some of our role plays we did. Some people got so, Anna had lived on this country farm, had 8 children, 13 children. He just booked it up. All of us were just rolling, having a good time as Anna was playing out her case study that we had done in the couples class. And so, that's really all I'm looking for. So it's just to give us some content of diverse family systems that might walk through our door that's just going to test our mental capacity to have a new family with all the complexities thrown at us and just be like, what do I think about this? How do I assess it? And if we're role-playing it a little bit, you're going to be put on the spot in the clinic. You're going to have an intake and be like, okay, what's coming at me? What do I do with this? So let's practice that a little bit before your first time. Does that make sense?
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thoughts, questions, concerns?
So we're kind of treating this like it's maybe one of the first times we've seen a client or haven't seen a client.
Do this like an intake session.
Like an intake, okay. And then obviously no treatment plan and all that.
No.
That would come
Yep. Yeah, we're just setting the stage for this family coming.
We're doing treatment plans literally every other
Oh.
So that we're pairing up, are we writing a case study of somebody else, or are we already in our
Yeah, so I want 6 case studies total.
Okay.
So, and I apologize, I got a little bit laser focused on other things going on. I meant to catch you a couple weeks ago in class and say, okay, let's pair off. So basically, maybe take the break time today and just find, so I think there's 13 of us. So if you could probably we'll need one group of 3. And then the rest be groups of 2. So just kind of figure that out together. Mix it up if you like, but You just have one other person that you're going to kind of work together on a little bit and write the
Are
case study.
Kylie and Victoria going to do their own?
They've
So
already done one. So
Okay.
Victoria
so
was
just
all over it.
Yeah,
She's
she
been
was
talking
like-
to me about it. So they already have theirs submitted.
Okay, so we don't include them in our
Correct.
terms.
And you've been working on it. Did you have somebody you were?
Yeah.
Okay. So okay. Good. All right. So, then what else do we have? Well, let's start. So the final for this class is on our last day of class. Okay, so it's going to be an in-person. I didn't do it during finals week because I knew the rest of yours would be papers, and I didn't want to make you come in on finals week just for one. But so mine's not a paper, and it's not exactly an exam. I mean, it is, but it's more of a short answer. But it's really, I'm training you to do it. That's what the next 2 weeks are about. Is you're going to be given a couple, 2, 3 case studies, probably a child one, an adolescent. Maybe I'll even do like a mixed family. So you might have 3 case studies where I want you to read through it, and it's open book, open note. You can have your computer, you can have your book, you can have your notes. But again, I just want you to read it, and I want to see your thoughts and your processing. So it's just, you're getting an intake. What things are you going to consider? What kind of questions are you going to ask about it? So I'll have a format. I'll have kind of like short answer things under each one. Like, I want you to talk some about this and some about this and some about this. And I just want you, I want to see you utilize your material, because when you're in the real therapy world, you're not expected to have it all up here, all right? There are times I have something come through my door and I grab my brainstorm book and I'm like, oh, okay, I know where that is, and I refresh myself on it. So just like the exam, this is just like real therapy life. This is, you have a new client that just came in, sat down, you did your intake, you're stepping back and you're trying to case conceptualize and think through what are the things that I need to be considering. And I want to see your depth and breadth of your ability to use your resources that you have at your disposal to think through, how am I conceptualizing this client, what things am I considering, and how might I be helpful with this client. Okay? So it's in a lot of ways, it's not a right and wrong answer. There's no, pick the right answer out of A, B, C, and D. I know short answer tends to scare people, but it's you're not writing a paper. It's a short answer that in some ways similar to the reflections, but a little bit different style. I just want to see you put your thought process on paper. Again, that's a hard thing to have a rubric for. So as long as I'm seeing, kind of your level of the depth and breadth, if you're just really simple, like I'm going to think about this, this, and this, and it's really brief and you don't really expand, that might be a little bit less. But as long as you just kind of write enough, and again, it's not going to be, you're not going to be writing pages on any of this stuff. It's short answer, but I want to see kind of where your mind goes. Again, thoughts, questions, concerns? Okay. So that's our next 3 weeks. Child and family case studies that you're bringing, adolescent family case studies that you're bringing, and then our final case study exam that I'll be bringing and we'll do together. The only thing, so we do have one more thing due next week. So just our standard reflection number 8. And reflection number 8 is basically for the last 4 weeks. Okay, so you can use the seminar that I presented, which incorporated a lot of brainstorm stuff, and the 3 weeks that we've talked about the brainstorm material. So you're not doing one for each week. It's just one collective for the last 4 weeks. So that's the only other assignment left, is the one reflection number 8. Okay. Hop out of here really quick. right. Well, I'd like to start today a little bit more exercise oriented. We didn't have an opportunity to finish off the gray pages from chapter 2. And this one is chock full of a lot of the things that I utilize therapeutically on a regular basis. So I did want to kind of teach and give a chance to practice some of these, just to kind of introduce them. Just like I tell my clients, if I introduce it to a class like this, some of you are going to like one half of what I give, some of you are going to like the other half, and the opposite ones you're probably not going to like. I have clients do that all the time, where they're, I introduce 2 or 3 things, you're like, I didn't really like those 2, that one connected with me. So I'm expecting that to be the case here, but I want to introduce you to the, give you as many tools for your toolbox as we can, because that's really what therapy is. You're constantly building your toolbox of different understandings, conceptualizations, theories, and practices that you can use, and you're going to learn which ones are more effective or less effective for you, both in presenting them and with the clientele that you tend to work with. And then hopefully you're always going to remember the one that, because I have ones that I use all the time and ones that I kind of forget about, and then I have a client come in and nothing's working, and I'm like, oh, I wonder if this one would be helpful. I whip that one out, and it's not my common one, and it's like the one that unlocks the door. So just keep building on that. Not everybody was here. I'd like to redo this because I actually didn't do it to completion. Okay? Who can tell me about the breath exercise that we did last week? Let's start by testing your memory today.
We did breathing and focused on levels of where we could focus on our breathing.
Okay.
Nose, lungs, diaphragm.
Yes. Yep. So we focused our breathing on our nose, we focused our breathing on our lungs, we focused our breathing on our diaphragm. How is that different from other breathing exercises that a lot of times people use in therapy sessions?
There wasn't the breath holding.
Okay. Correct?
There wasn't any counting, or like it felt less guided. It was sort of just like, see if you can do this.
Okay. Right. And what does breathing exercises often target in a therapy session?
Your nervous system.
Yep. And what's it trying to do to your nervous system?
Calm it down.
Calm it down, regulate it, ground it. Okay. I mentioned that for some people, this exercise will help ground. Other people, this might actually ramp up a little bit. So the actual intent of this one is not grounding. This one is about integration and focused attention. So, we talked a little bit about how there's a lot in our society and our culture these days that just doesn't encourage our brain to be able to stay on one spot. Some people who study this call it brain bouncing. They've done a lot of research and noticed how the impact it can have on happiness, because there is a part of our brain that likes to have some level of being able to stay focused and complete something before it moves on to the next. But not all of us have that as a starting point. And, even as somebody who made fun of me earlier for being focused when we were talking about things.
You are focused. You are driven.
Yes. So
That's what you should deduce from this.
So Jen really got on me one time. I remember early on in our relationship, because I used to have, I don't really do it much anymore, but I was that person who I'd be sitting there like not watching a show, but just like thinking about, focused on something, and all of a sudden she goes, I've been talking to you for like a minute. Did you not hear me? But I would be so focused on something that literally I was like, I had no idea you were trying to get my attention and talk to me, because I was laser focused. But a lot, and I would even say I don't do that anymore, probably because just how our, got my new Instagram, so, scrolling it. So it's not about what we are focused on, it's what else could I focus on? And things really kind of bring our minds to different attention. So some of the research is noticing that the ability to train the part of your brain in the prefrontal cortex dedicated to focused attention can be really helpful with our emotional state. And part of that is, we talked about the upstairs and the downstairs of the brain, And what you're doing is you're building the wiring between the two. So let's do the breathing exercise, because not everybody was here. Plus, this is a great one to practice, and I did kind of rush through it, and I never actually had you fully do the exercise and then give me feedback on how it went for you. So let me start with the introduction again, and I'm also modeling how you might introduce this in a session if this is something you'd want to use. So what I'd like to do today is teach you a breath exercise dedicated to focused attention. So you can leave your eyes open, you can close them, it doesn't matter, that's not what this is about. But I'd simply like you to take a few seconds here and just pay attention to the fact right now that you are breathing. Just notice your breath. Now we're going to do the layers that we talked about. So I'd like you to pay attention to your breath at the level of your diaphragm. We're going to start opposite this time for those of you who were here before. But notice that as you breathe, your stomach expands and contracts. So just allow yourself to take a moment and become aware of your breath at the level of your stomach. Now we're going to make a small transition. Instead of focusing on your stomach, I'd like you to focus on your breath at the level of your lungs. So let yourself become aware of how your chest expands and contracts as you breathe. And finally, we're going to switch one more time. And I would like you to pay attention to your breath at the level of your nose. So just let yourself become aware that as you breathe, the air is coming in and out through your nostrils. Notice it might tickle, it might be warm or cool, but just let yourself, let that fill your awareness that you're breathing in and out through your nose. And then I'd like you to take just one breath, deep breath, and come back to me for a second here. All right. So what we're learning there, how did people do at being able to pay attention to the fact that they were breathing at the three different areas? Were you able to kind of toggle back and forth and notice the different ones? Okay. So now answer this question for me. Which ones are you always breathing at? Which level?
All of them.
All of them. So just to point that out, we are breathing at every single one of these levels every moment of every day. Otherwise, we would not be here as human beings. So we are constantly breathing at these levels, but very rarely, unless we're being intentional, do we pay attention that we're breathing. Now, we're breathing at all three levels, but when I asked you to pay attention to a specific level, some easier, some not as easy, you were able to pay attention to it. So what that shows is the part of your brain that is dedicated to focused attention is working. You do have the capacity to pick something and pay attention to it and focus your attention there. So now I'd like us to go back. Well, first of all, how many people like the nose the best? Okay. How many people like the lungs? How many people like the stomach? Okay. We have quite a variation. How many didn't like any of them? Okay, that's fine. I've had clients who they like, I can't do that. And so then I would use a picture in my office. And and we do a visual version of it, so we use different body senses. But because breathing is regulated out of here, and we're trying to build connection here, if you can do the breathing one, it's a great one to build the connection there. So it's kind of the starting place, but it's not for everybody. So just be aware of that. So now what I'd like us to do is take your favorite one, or you can do all of them, or do the best you can if it's not your thing, and that's okay. I said it won't be for everybody. So pick your favorite one, and I'm going to ask you to focus for 2 minutes, and I will be the clock watcher, okay? And so what I want you to do is pay attention to your breathing at one level for 2 minutes. And I'm about to warn you, you will not do well at this.
You speak for yourself.
Very few of us, unless you practice these type of things regularly, you're not going to do great, okay? What you're going to notice is you will pay attention for a couple seconds to your breath at that level. And then what's going to happen? Your mind is going to wander over here, and you're going to start thinking about something. So I'd like you to notice that your mind left. It went to a different place. Just like an internal family system, let's not be judgmental. Have you got done IFS yet? Okay. So we're going to do the non-judgmental self. We just noticed, okay, it went over here. That's okay. Brian said that was going to happen. And I'm just going to try to bring my attention back to my breathing at that place. And then it's going to wander over here. You're not going to judge yourself again, and you're going to work to try to bring it back and hold it there as long as you can. And then it's going to go over here, and you're going to try to work to bring it back. So just see how it goes for you. And then I'll ask you what your experience is like. So I will watch the clock. Begin. Once again, take one last deep breath and come back to me. You fell asleep. So what was the experience like for people? What did you notice?
Relaxing.
Okay, for you it was relaxing.
I felt like if I did more of that, I would be much saner and happier right now. Like, I forgot that that's something I like to do.
So as a reminder to you, that helps you be more in the time in place.
I enjoyed it. I do a lot of deep breathing at home as it is, but I kind of noticed myself not forgetting to breathe from my lungs, but I was also feeling it in my stomach with the way I was laying. So I'm like, wait, am I breathing breathing from my diaphragm or my
Uh-huh.
my lungs. So
Yeah.
that was kind of some thoughts that went through my mind, but
That's where your brain went.
yeah.
And then to try to bring it back to focusing on one. That's the trick to it.
Mhm.
Is can you pick one thing to try to hold your attention? And that's where you can do it with a picture too. I have a big picture with a rock in it. It's a North Shore picture, so it's got a big rock in it. So I say, or they can use the lighthouse. I just say pick one of those two and just try to hold your attention on it,
Mhm.
and not let your mind go to places, but just focus on that. That's tricky. So yeah. So as I was mentioning earlier, with the interpersonal neurobiology that we're learning from Siegel, and I talked about how Siegel has a book, which we've read about young children. We're reading a book about adolescents. Siegel has a book for parents. Siegel has a book for therapists. And it's all the same foundational thing. The great thing with adolescence, we've talked about the plasticity of the brain and how we can change things. This is the most plastic time. So if students will engage with some of these things while their brain is remodeling, you can't bypass adolescence like I've mentioned, but we can help to speed up the process by helping them, if they're able to, focus on some of these things and build some of the supportive neural networks that go along with them. And so this is just one exercise that really helps while this upstairs part of the brain is remodeling to start building neural connections between the two. So that lids, because if you can focus your attention, a lot of times when I lose my emotional state is when, I'm not well focused. My brain just is kind of all over the place, and I'm much more susceptible to that. So when I can find that place in me that can say, this is where I want my mind to be right now, that connects with my emotions and my memories, my images, my kind of everything in my body, and can help hold things together. So we can strengthen that over time. So this is one therapeutic technique that you can use with adolescents, but you can use with parents and adults and whoever it is you're working with at any time. All right. What can you tell me? Yeah, sure.
I just want to say, people who really like the different breathing exercises, I mean, they're really fun ways to bring them to clients, like the different styles, like the breath that you were talking about. I know through yoga called the 3-part breath, where it talks about like a rolling wave, starting from your stomach and going up and then going down, if you're like giving the visual ones, or like, loud open mouth exhales. Maybe you have a client who like has trouble like vocalizing things or things like that, just being able to starting to make sound through these other types of breathing. But yeah,
it's good stuff.
Does it help when you have? I suppose it depends on the person, but does it help if a kid's really fidgety, agitated? Does it help to sort of like give them something to ground, or are they just usually like
over time?
Okay.
So I mean, the younger they are, no. I did one with a young. What was he, about 9 at the time, and I learned you have him lay on his back and put a cup on their stomach, and they were just focused on that and holding the cup there and watching it go up and down. So there are kind of fun, creative ways to help that happen.
Yeah.
So say again what you were saying.
like is this a good technique for like trying to get it ground a kid, like a younger kid,
Right.
or are there better techniques that might work better for them? It just like depends on the kid.
When I taught kids yoga, they would come in from recess, and then I would teach yoga, and I would have them do like a downward facing dog into like laying down. Have you ever done yoga?
Mm-hmm.
With laying down with your legs up in the wall, because it takes pressure off your heart, but it regulates your blood temperature or your bloodstream. And so like it's like ha ha ha, you have to look silly and sit in this chair, but literally if they're laying on their back and their legs are up, it's gonna really take a lot of pressure off and really calm them down in the beginning for sure.
Also, that feels good for everybody.
No matter who you
I
are.
was gonna say that.
You're
I
right.
haven't done that in a long
Pretty
time, and I'm like,
Yep.
hmm.
I just learned that through my wife probably just maybe 6 months ago.
Oh yeah.
And she'll do entire sessions laying on her back with her client on the floor with their legs on the couch.
Oh yeah.
and just talk the whole time.
Yep.
That's kind of therapy I'm gonna do.
That's kind of nap I'm gonna take.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know. Well, I think that there's like, sorry, what was your friend's name? Tammy?
Tammy, yeah.
When she, I know this is different, like when there's a group of kids versus one, but like having them count, or just giving them something to focus on. And,
Yeah.
like, or
Blowing
do-
on the
do-
feather.
Yeah, or
Right.
do together the stuffed animal thing. I think was,
Yeah.
was good. I
Yeah.
guess that's, yeah.
I think sometimes when it's really hard to bring children in, you know, coming in from recess or even like a couple of them and they just don't want to do it, I was like, well, what kind of animal pose do you want to do? And then they're like, oh, I want to do another thing now. I'm like, oh, legs up the wall. But yeah, getting them
Have them make their own yoga pose.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do the spider.
And then we would all do the spider, and then
Not
I'd
a
be like,
spider.
or like
A fluffy
penguin.
panda bear.
penguin's a good one. But anyway,
So Miranda, going back to your question, that was a question that I had for a long time. So knowing that, when you're talking about focus, sometimes it's ADHD, sometimes it's not. Those who did, I was wondering, because knowing that like sometimes a lot of stimulation, not something like this, helps dial in, somebody whose brain is more neurodiverse with ADHD, and it can dial things in. So I was like, oh, does that mean like this would be a bad exercise to do? So I had that lingering question for a long time, and then I came across a podcast. I'm not a huge podcaster, but I came across one, and exactly on that topic. And the doctor who was talking about it with the radio host, talked about how she basically started using this type, like Siegel type language, but it was just slightly different. And I'm just like, that's the same thing. And really highlighted how the brain works. And even with those of us who naturally, like, even if stimulation focuses us in, this type of training long term can be beneficial, to kind of bring a counterbalance to that for those who feel like that would be a beneficial resource to be able to do things that they want to do that are quieter but also require focus. Now the thing with this breathing exercise, and it's why the way I introduce it, this isn't you do it for a week and your brain is nicely dialed in. Siegel talks about it like, so this is something you do for like 4, 5, 6 months on a fairly regular basis, but it doesn't have to be done for a long period of time. So this isn't like a half an hour workout that you have to get in during the day. But if you did this even for 5 minutes a day, 4 or 5 days of the week, I like how Siegel does that, because he says if you try to get somebody to do something every day and then they miss a day, what do they feel like?
garbage.
A failure. And so you structure it in such a way, like for some of my clients, it's like try to do it once this week, and if you don't, that's okay, but let's just try to remember. And so you kind of do a slow build, and even when you kind of hit your peak, give yourself some days off as a part of the structure. Now other people will be like, yep, I did it 7 days, I did it twice a day, all 7 days, 15 minutes each time.
Wow.
Because they have more time. And the more you do it, the faster it goes and the more benefit. But knowing that breaking things into small chunks and helping people build it slowly over time is usually the best way to help people incorporate things. And so that's how I introduce it. Like, okay, so the first week, let's just try to do it once. And I just Sarah Carlson was in with me when I introduced this to one of my newer students with some anxiety. And we ended up bringing mom in because the student was like, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to remember to do it. That's kind of a comorbid, focus and memory. And so I said, okay, well, let's bring mom in. Let mom know what you just said you wanted to do and see if mom can help you remember to just do it one time this week. So we built a little resource in there as well. All right. So moving on from the breath exercise, the 5 senses exercise. Where in the brain are our 5 senses? Mainly processed.
Okay, I was going to say, I'm
I
like,
was
aren't
like, there are
they-
multiple
is there a
places.
little like all over technically? But
Hand.
I was just saying, I'm like over
I
here,
realize-
like looking at my hand. I'm like, see, it's on
No.
the side.
Right hemisphere.
Oh, yeah. So not even in any of
So
it.
we're talking left and right hemisphere.
Left is logic, language, linear thinking, literalness, and lists, the 5 L's of the left hemisphere, which I do those 5 words: logic, language, literalness, linear thinking, and lists. What does that sound like to you?
A lot of L's.
What?
Left.
Left? It's sitting in front of most of you.
Laptops.
Laptop. Yeah, whoa, laptops, it's an L. Awesome. I always say computer, but you just gave me a whole new thing to add to this. That's all.
Oh my
Laptops.
gosh.
So
Amazing.
your computing system's on your left side.
Yeah, more so. Yep.
Logic, language, literalness.
Yep. Logic, language, literalness, linear thinking, so putting things in sequential order,
Yep.
and lists. So when we're doing those things, we're living more in our left hemisphere of our brain.
Left side's an Excel sheet. Got it.
Yep. Creativity, emotions, compassion,
Power.
5 senses are more the right hemisphere of the brain. All right. So with the 5 senses, there's a wonderful 5 senses exercise. This is one of my favorite ones to do. You can incorporate this in a lot of different ways. And so what this does, once again, similar to what we're doing, another thing the left brain does is it wants me to focus on everything outside of me. So when I'm thinking about the walls in this room and the desks and the people, and I'm making sense of how everything outside of me is laid out, I'm using my left side. When I'm using my right side, I'm using looking at more of my internal world. So I'm going to give you a little story, because this is my best example of this. Jen and I one time found ourselves, when we had a house full of kids, we had like a weekday morning. Somehow we were both at home, and there were no kids there.
Whoa.
And we're like, when does this ever happen? Like, we need to go out and do something. And so we went to Keys Cafe in Hudson for breakfast and sat down and just went to have a nice breakfast together. But she got up and went to the restroom, and I am sitting there, and I'm like, oh my gosh, all I want to do is be with my wife and have a good time. But my brain was going, what are you doing? You're not supposed to be here. We don't do this on a weekday morning. You're supposed to be someplace else doing other stuff. See how our brain tends to get hijacked by rhythms and patterns? And I was like, this is not okay. And all of a sudden I was like, the 5 senses exercise. And so I sat there before she came back. I think my food came at that time. And so I spent a little time, and there were they had these big drapes that were hanging kind of up on the ceiling. And so I just sat there and I stared at one of them. And I noticed the color and the texture of it. And then I shifted my attention. We're going to do this as an exercise. I just listened around the room, and I just let myself become aware of the audio sensory stuff that was happening around the room. And then my omelet came. And I took a bite of my omelet, and I was like, okay, there's the egg. There's the provolone cheese. Okay, I can taste the tomato. Oh, and there's the bacon. And I just like this, I let myself focus and walk through the different flavors, and it's amazing. I don't know if you've ever done that when you're eating. If you put something in your mouth, because you know how we typically eat stuff we like, it's like, we're so excited we eat as fast as we can. If you have something, especially if it has different flavors to it, you put it in your mouth, and if you pay attention to it, you can walk yourself through the different flavors that are in by paying attention to them. So anyway, long story short, I got done doing this, and I let Jen know when she got back, this is what I was doing. And when I got done doing my 5 senses exercise, the entire outside world was gone. My brain was completely present with where we were at, and we had an amazing time focused on each other and a great breakfast together. But I had to do something to shift what part of my brain. And so since I was stuck over here, was thinking there's stuff outside here that I need to be doing, but I wanted to be present with my wife, I kicked in my 5 senses, and that brought me back to the moment. Okay? that's an example of integrating the left and the right hemisphere of the brain. You're overfiring one side, you want to activate the other side through a different activity. Now, it can go both ways. I have lots of clients that come in because our culture is typically very left brain heavy in what we do and how we approach life. We don't often nurture the right side as much. So there's disorders and challenges that we have when we tip this way. And then I've had other clients come in where I'm like, oh, you're the exact opposite. Your challenges are coming because it took me a while to realize it, like, oh, you are so overusing your right brain that you can't do the thing that the left brain might actually be helpful with. And so we need to work on that. And so there's just lots of these areas in life that we can start to look and see, is our client tipped more left brain or more right brain, and help them. This is what integration is all about. It's not one side is better than the other, not one side is right, one is wrong. It's just one is being more dominant and maybe tipping to a point where it's leaving out something that's beneficial, and we need to have them both be a part of it. So, can we try a 5 senses exercise? This is more of our experiential class. Do we need candy for taste?
Yes, we do. I was gonna ask.
I happen to have some in my mouth.
Also, I could take an omelet too.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
oh,
I'm like, you were, yeah, Lisa started making cakes. Oh, you were at a party or whatever over the weekend.
Oh yeah.
And then I was like, God damn it, now I want cake. That's all I could think about for like an hour.
Did you get any?
Do you remember what the 5 X were again? I didn't get to write them down. I have language, literalness, and
It would have been like, it would have been like $25.
what was that?
Linear thinking, logic, and list.
Thank
Like
you.
You do not eat this yet. I have
Croissants.
two milk, 2 dark, a bunch of white chocolate, and 1 extra dark.
I don't care.
I'll take whatever's
Take the black one.
This one?
I say not white chocolate.
I'll take white chocolate.
Okay, the yellow.
Cool.
Yep. The milk is the red.
Where's the dark one?
The really dark?
Just regular dark.
The blue.
I'll take a dark chocolate one.
The really dark?
What is really dark?
Like 70% cocoa.
Yeah, I'll take it.
All right, black.
I'll have the blue one.
The blue.
Thank you.
So
I want red.
milk.
Yeah.
Let's take the really dark.
Really dark.
Mom. Otherwise, I'd rub
I have a very good candy. I don't eat candy often, so when I'm in a mood for it, I go for specific things.
All right.
Chocolate and mint.
Unwrap it. Unwrap your candy. Put it in front of you, but do not.
I opened mine.
Because you want it accessible. So we're going to take about 5 minutes here. And I'm simply going to walk you through your 5 senses. Now, this one will almost put clients asleep in my class. People are like, oh my gosh. Like, somebody comes in and they're kind of frazzled and they're all over the place. Their brain is kind of disorganized and moving. Walking them through this, all of a sudden, they are there with you. They are in the present moment, and it can totally change the processing for you. So we're going to take 30, 60 seconds. I'll just kind of time out. Some of them last a little bit longer than others. So what I'd like you to do, I'm going to walk you through your 5 senses. So we're going to start with our sense of sight. What I'm going to ask you to do is pick one thing in the room and just allow yourself to begin to notice it. Now, I don't want you to analyze it, but just let yourself become aware that you have this amazing ability to see things. So it's not about what you're looking at, but let yourself, kind of on a meta level, become aware of this amazing gift of sight. I'm going to ask you to switch your attention. We're going to pay attention to our sense of hearing. So what I want you to do, once again, is just notice this amazing gift of hearing that you have. Don't worry about what you're listening to, but let your mind kind of stretch out. Are there different things? I close the door so that nothing becomes dominant, but sometimes you might be able to hear a car on the road, or let your sense of hearing just kind of expand itself, and just be aware of the different nuances of your sense of hearing. Shift our attention once more, and I'm going to ask you to pick up your piece of chocolate, but do not put it in your mouth. What I'd like you to do is take a few seconds and hold it underneath your nose, and just let yourself become aware of your sense of smell. And it might not be strong at first, but the longer you pay attention, see if you can allow the scent to become stronger and stronger. Now's the exciting time. You're going to put that piece of chocolate in your mouth, but please do not chew it right away. If you can hold it in your mouth. Put it in your tongue. And you can bite it if you need to. But then allow the flavor to come out. Don't consume it quickly, but just give yourself a few seconds to notice and let your awareness of that flavor, your sense of taste, come to your attention. You can chew if you need to.
Oh my god. Please don't choke.
Now, for safety's sake, everybody should probably chew and swallow it before we continue.
That was so good. Well, that's the best sex I've had all week.
I used to always keep a pack of gobstoppers in my office.
Mm.
I think it's sunk up. So our final one, our sense of touch. So I want to take about a minute. This one can last a little bit longer, but I'm going to walk you around your body, okay? If you're able with me, I'd like you to allow yourself to become aware of your sense of touch. So first of all, pay attention to your feet in your shoes if you're wearing them, or the ground pushing back on the bottom of your feet. And now let yourself become aware of the different points where your body is touching your body. Might be your arm resting on your leg, your hand resting on your arm, face. But just walk yourself around your body and let yourself become aware of all the places where your body is contacting your body. Now I want you to notice where your body is making contact with your clothing. Might be the cuff of your shirt or jacket,
Maybe a hat on your head. The way your shirt is laying on your body. And finally, notice the different places where things like your chair might be touching. Just those little points of pressure. Take one last deep breath and come back to it. So what was that like? Positive and or negative?
Normally I wouldn't have a problem with this, but all of my clothes have been giving me sensory hell today. So when you were like, so your clothes, I'm like, no, because I actually had to change my outfit 6 times before I left my house today, and I'm still not happy. But all right, we're doing this.
Good awareness, yeah.
I think smell was the strongest for me, which I figured it would be taste, which was strong too, but it was like the combination of the smell and the chocolate, and then it smells like spring today for the first time, and I was just like, holy shit, I'm 7 years old, and this is my Easter basket, this is incredible, and then, yeah, I was like, oh, no, I won't.
Makes me sad. It makes me sad you won't be on campus over the summer for chocolate mulch day. When they go to the Nestle plant and they get all the mulch that they make from like the old cocoa plants, the arborists on campus, they get mulch from like the old chocolate plants. And so all of our mulch rings are made with old cocoa plants. And so campus smells like chocolate for like a week straight or in like June. Oh, fun.
Ooh, pretty cool.
Yeah.
That is cool.
So you were just like, oh, springtime, Easter baskets. I'm like, chocolate mulch day is what my brain went to. Sorry.
You like really walk in the chocolate factory.
Yeah.
I'm closing my eyes, smelling them. I'm like, oh, I'm just surrounded by
It's just
chocolate.
like, yeah, it's just like this instant, not even a specific memory, it's just like, this is my plastic Easter basket, this is my giant chocolate bunny, and I was just like, it was within seconds.
Did you close your eyes when you did that by
Yes.
chance? Okay, because that was going to be, I'm usually an eyes open person, just someone with balance issues, so I feel like if I maybe would have closed my eyes, I could have probably been a little bit more transported, but that's good to know. Thank you.
So it's different for everybody, but you can see some of the power of some of these sensory things. And once again, it's the integration of the different parts. Often sensory things, why are sensory things often so helpful for us? Partially culturally, we just don't, we don't spend a lot of time outdoors focused on our, some people do, but a lot of people don't really activate those parts of themselves. And so to be able to bring those together can be very, very helpful for a lot of people. Let's see. Do we want to do another one, or was 2 enough of actually doing it and I could just talk about them?
Oh, I'm good.
I would like to do another one.
I was going to say, I'm actually kind of having fun.
Let's take a quick break then.
Despite sensory.
And let's come back at quarter after, and we'll run through the last couple here.
It's just funny because you're like, wait, are my pants tight? And like when you do that, like how then you start to go like, wait, these feel different? No, it's been
I don't
literally
like
1
these as
second.
much as I did 30 seconds ago.
I'm like, oh, am I hot?
Well, now that you brought it up, I think I'm sweating.
You know what? I hate these pants.
See, I'm funny that way. I have a reputation. People will walk into an office of mine and be like, aren't you hot? Or aren't you cold? And I'll pause and be like, well, now that you mention it, yeah, I guess maybe I am, but typically I'm oblivious to temperature.
Yep.
Like, I just don't notice until somebody asks me to pay attention to it.
So interesting.
So my focus in that probably means I need to be in this body stuff a little bit more.
Do you know about alternate nostril breathing?
Yeah.
heard of that.
Yeah, alternate nostril breathing. It's called Nadi Shodhanam. It regulates your left and right
Like this?
hemisphere. No, kind of. You breathe in through one, and then you breathe out, then you breathe in, and then you breathe out, then you breathe in, and
Yeah.
then you switch it back and forth, and it helps really regulate.
Yeah.
It also is really helpful for migraines.
Yeah. Okay.
And so I'm just thinking about for, adolescent individuals who have, sensory concerns or sensory issues, like if the five senses is real rough for them, being able to do this, the other breath ones,
Yeah.
so cool.
Usually if it's a sensory one, I just ask, do you have one or two that like you liked and stood out? Like most people don't go home and do all five. It's pick one or two that if you like them, use those two as your focus.
Perfect.
The five senses one that I have your interest used on me. One that I've learned I really like is like when you're sitting there and it's like, okay, find 5 things that like you can see,
Yes.
4 things that you can
Here.
hear, 3 things that you can like touch, 2 things that you can smell, and 1 thing that you can taste, because that's usually and in that moment they're like just literally anything, and so like oftentimes like someone will like lick the front of their teeth and they're like, I can tell that I just smoked a cigarette
Yeah.
or whatever it
Yeah.
is, and it's just little things like, so that is one that I have found I particularly enjoy when I don't have the ability to like find a lot of stimuli, and it's more like, no, you just need to kind of figure out what you're in contact with and what can you see, smell, hear, touch, and taste right this second.
And what I love about this one, I'll mention it when we come back. What I tell students is what's great, like the hand on the heart thing that I taught you, or the 5 senses. Let's say you're having a rough time in school. You could sit there and pick a sense to kind of focus on, and who's going to know you're doing it?
Nobody knows you're doing it.
Nobody knows you're doing it. So it's a way of not needing to go someplace else where you're noticed, because a lot of students have a hard time with that. Like, well, if I leave and go do this, everybody's going to notice, and they're already worried about everybody paying attention to everything that they do. And so 5 senses can just be just a stealth way to do something that's self-regulating for yourself.
I love that. I didn't even think of that. Especially somebody who's just like proud crybaby. I'd be crying.
Yes, I don't want to bother you. So you're just good. Oh yeah, he was gonna say that I weren't able to. I want to get it.
It was last night.
That's why I'm doing it.
Dark chocolate is dark, but it's good. You can thank Heather for that. I think she gave it to me over the holiday time. But it was so much chocolate. I wanted to keep it here, and I'd have a piece. I try not to eat too much of it, so I'd have a piece here and there.
Thanks for sharing with us.
Oh yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, for sure.
I know it's not an amazing candy bar.
Oh, God, so much better.
You remember the candy bars that came in and sold for my
Oh
daughter?
yeah. I
Since
appreciate
we're
that too.
delicious.
all the options are good.
Well, I'm sure they'll do it next year, so I'll bring it.
Oh, I forgot to stop this.
Starting in 3 minutes.
just becomes